Welcome to Pub in the Desert, where we bring you honest, curious conversations about faith and the human experience. I'm Matthias Miller here with my co-host Kevin David Gridner. Before we dive in, I want to recap our three guiding principles. Number one, you don't need to be fixed, you need to be known. And we believe that love is knowing and being known. And second, we approach difficult topics with genuine curiosity. We aren't here to win arguments, we're here to understand. And then third, we don't come with preset agendas. We're here to let conversations unfold naturally and follow where authenticity leads us. So pull up a chair, grab a drink. Let's explore what union looks like with God, with others, and with ourselves. So, Kevin, today we've got a guest with us today, which is always fun. And why don't you go ahead and introduce him to our listeners?
Yeah. Well, this is Daniel. Say hello, Daniel.
Hey guys, how's it going?
So Daniel and I have been friends walking together, talking about life and scripture and all those things for what, probably 5 or 6 years?
Yep, I would go so far as to call you my mentor.
So Daniel has agreed to join us today, and at the risk of his sanity, and enjoy engage in this conversation. And Daniel, the reason why I thought it would be a great idea to have you come on is first and foremost, you have an incredible story, and not just the last, 3, 4 months, but a life story. And because we're all about conversation and getting to know each other and sharing what it's like to be a human being living in this world. And I think you have a great story to tell. So I was
Thank
like,
you.
come tell your story and let Matthias and I harass you for a little bit.
It's it's intimidating to have somebody say, it's like tell us your story. It's like what I'm 35 years old. So what makes the cut of the highlights reel of my life? I know that your reference to three or 4 months ago has been I've been through a wild health journey. My wife and I have our life, we feel like it took a left turn when we didn't expect it. And um, how do I summarize? Do you want me to kind of just give you a quick rundown of how I got to here, and then dive into how
Yeah,
I
let's just start out with a quick, here, this is how I am here, how I got here, and then we can dive in deeper from there.
cool. I was born in what I I thought I was born in Huntington Beach for the last well, most of 30 years. I have been writing on every legal document that I was born in Huntington Beach. Because that's a child's brain latches onto something, and that's what you think you do. But actually, I was born in Anaheim Hills. My mom informed me when I was filling out my marriage license. But anyway, I was born in Southern California and have a bunch of family down there. And around the age of 7, my parents decided to move us up to Northern California to kind of be out of the concrete jungle and be raised around the trees and fewer neighbors, and what I thought was a travesty because I was moving away from all my cousins and all my best friends in the world. But I had most of my formative years up in Northern California in a little gold mining city called Nevada City. Popular during the gold rush and kind of stayed fairly small. Both my parents are Christians and believers, and I grew up going to awanas, and I did homeschooling for a while. And before you get worried, I am one of those well-adjusted homeschoolers who actually was socialized. Um, and I was like, oh no, he's going to talk about all the awkwardness. There will be some of that for sure.
We steer away from controversial topics here, Daniel, so,
So
don't
sorry.
don't introduce these things.
Um, yeah, I was homeschooled until about eighth grade, and then I went to the little private Christian high school in town, and we had 90 students in my graduating class and 300 total in my high school. And I was the kid, just to show you how well adjusted I was. The sneakers with heels or the wheels in the bottom.
Right. Yeah.
I had not only did I have Heelys, but instead of a backpack, I also had a rolling laptop bag for my high school experience. And so I was a kid who'd get off the bus and then wheel my way, both bag and shoes, all the way into school. Um,
You were that
and
guy.
I was that cool guy. You forgot the modifier. I was
I'm
the
sorry.
coolest. Everyone was
Sorry.
so jealous. So yeah, that was high school, and it was a great school to go to. The class that I was in had an above average number of would-be worship leaders in the future. So we were
Wow.
extremely musical. We had I think we had like 15 musicians and whatnot. And the only reason I bring that up is because I remember freshman, sophomore year, I believe, we all decided that we were gonna run a worship night on Wednesdays because Wednesday chapel was not enough.
Right.
We had to be really close to God. So that, and then awanas on Thursday nights, and then all the different other things. So I was steeped in it. I knew my Bible backwards and forwards, mainly because it really was a textbook. Um, and we put on this event, and we had a whole lot of kumbaya circles, and I wish that was metaphor. It really was actual kumbaya circles. And then and then I spent a lot of my summers at a number of different camps. Like I said, I was in Awanas, and I was like tippity toppity Awana member,
Mm.
going, even through high school. A lot of people don't even know that they go through high school. They just think that you play games as a 10-year-old. Um, but yeah, I spent summer camps at an Awana camp, and I did a program called Child Evangelism Fellowship, which sounds innocent enough, but I wanted to go for the rope swing and the blob and all the camp activities during the summer, and actually it was just school from the age of 12 to 18, where you learn to teach backyard VBS clubs. And um, it was I was steeped in it. It's like being close to God was second nature for me.
Mm.
And my dad grew, like all growing up, my dad would bring us down. He worked from home. Mm, he traveled 2 days a week. So on the days that he was home, he'd get all the kids up, and we'd all make our hot chocolates and our local flower garden mugs for any of my Grass Valley folks. That's the local coffee chain. Um, but we'd go downstairs to his little office, which could have been cut straight out of the Country Home and Living magazine. My dad was he should the joke is he should have been a florist. He's got an antiques dealer and or a florist, even though that had nothing to do with his actual trade. But his office was decked out with all the different accoutrements that an antique dealer would have. And then we would read scripture together, and he was pretty good as I would say, really formative as a child. He would take us through a section of scripture, and then he'd find when they had VHSs, dating myself, he would find a dramatization version of whatever we were reading in scripture. So we went through the
Wow.
Matthew, Mark, and Luke. We went to the Acts videos, and we'd watch the section of scripture that pertained to what it was that we had just read. And it was honestly, I think about how fortunate I was growing up to have two parents who love Jesus and who are interested in getting you into activities and community and keep you out of the public school system. So you have less of a chance of becoming a communist. It's all coming together.
There's that whole Red Scare in the 90s.
Oh, we weathered it quite well. There was no scare for us. We were locked up safely at home.
The wall had come down, so you were good.
Yep, yep, Gorbachev. Oh gosh. Anyway, that uh, at the tender age of 18, I still have, he's not gone. I have an older brother, who's significantly older, 15 years older than me. And he was kind of idol and best friend. I wanted to grow up to be him. And when I was 12 years old, my parents sent me out to visit him. He lived in Arkansas. And he was going to school at the time at a university called John Brown University. And as a 12-year-old, that formative experience made my nail biter decision of where am I going to go to school so simple. I'm going exactly to where my brother went. I didn't even need to look at anywhere else. Um, so I decided what college I was going to at 12. And I just said, well, what kind of majors do they have there? And I remember being there for orientation week with my dad. The reason I mentioned chapel, or not chapel, but this mu musical element for my high school was I can't play an instrument. I mean, I don't count the harmonica. I can plunk out a Christmas carol on a harmonica, but I was not a vocalist. I was not a singer. What I could do was audiovisual tech. And so I took us from those overhead transparencies. I don't know if you remember those,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
with the gooseneck and yeah.
Yes.
We had those with sheet music being put up to lead our 300 students in chapel.
Wow.
And I was just appalled by that.
And this was in the 90s, right?
This would have been no, this would have been 2004. I
Oh,
was
wow. So
born.
we're into the 2000s,
Yes,
still using
yes.
the overhead projector.
I will say a lot about private Christian schools, but their technological advancement is not one of those things that I can recommend. Um, and my dad would, once a quarter or whatnot, would go to and give presentations. So he had purchased through his company, he had purchased a projector and had an old laptop. And I was like, well, I'm taking it upon myself. This is what I can contribute. And I would pack his projector up on Wednesday mornings, and I'd show up at an ungodly hour before school, and I'd set up a proper projector in the chapel or in the gym at the time. It wasn't really a chapel, but for chapel on Wednesdays. And my goal was I just hated transparencies and people needed to be able to sing along to the worship songs. And so I would find pictures on Google of peaceful mountain scenes or babbling brooks running through, and I would throw text over them for our songs.
Wow.
The church that I was going to also believed in having the students run audio. So from age 12, I learned how to properly roll and wrap an XLR cable and how to unpack microphones and pack microphones back up and set up a drum kit and do all the lighting and that kind of stuff. So I had been around this audio tech kind of deal, and what I could contribute was kind of the behind the scenes guy. And I could run sound, and I felt it was really it was a simple calling, but a noble thing to say, I want the words not to be a distraction. I want it to be focused on worship. And I could add something by picking as the deer panteth water, getting a actual water scene next to it. So this is my first introduction into kind of what would be my vocation. When I got to college and I was sitting there for orientation week, I sat with my dad. My dad's advice was, go get a business degree. Everything needs business. And he had gotten an MBA, so it was like the age-old advice that would never fail. And I
Right.
said, Dad, that sounds absolutely terrible. I would never want, it's like I never want to have to open Excel in my life. And so I said, well, what about graphic design? It's like the school that I ended up going to, John Brown, actually has their second largest degree other than engineering. And well, actually, no, it's the third largest. They have engineering and they have business, but they also had an arts program that was incredible and a really great graphic design program. And I said, well, Dad, I know you say that every business needs business. Um, Needs someone who knows how to do a SWOT analysis. But but every business also needs, we're in, the 20 aughts, so we're 2008 is when I started college. And I was like, every business is now going to need one of these new things called websites. And I want to learn how to make them. And I want to, it's like every business needs a logo. And I challenged, and he's like, you're going to be a starving artist. No, and I said, Dad, no, I don't want to be an artist. I want to be a designer. And to get on a little tiny soapbox here, they are different, even though we do use the same pretty pictures and pretty colors. I believe that the general distinction between the two is art is about doing what you love and then trying to sell it afterwards. Design is about starting with a problem and using the same tools in order to solve a problem. And um, it's been a point
So
of
art
contention.
creates problems and design solves problems.
Art creates starving artists. Um, but no, there's if you start with someone else's problem and you learn your tools and you can apply yourself to it, you can fix a lot of those problems. So
Right.
um I and that was kind of my modus operandi with my career choice. That, and I want to call him out, a really formative, pivotal graphic design one professor. And I have since taught at the university level and realized that graphic design one is all about stealing majors from other disciplines. It's just about being cool and about trying, he would start every class by, I remember sitting on his desk and he'd read us an excerpt from The War of Art or Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance or some like ridiculous, thought starter book, and he just did it for our well-being. And he said graphic designers need to be interesting people. If you're not an interesting person, then you have nothing to pull from of interest and so it's weird. I took that to heart. I remember one of his suggestions and advice was, maybe walk backwards around campus one day just to see what would be different about your perspective. Or he's like, well, go on a smell tour of the local, it's like go to the candle aisle and open up every lid. Anyway, he's just this real Renaissance guy. And he was a fly fisherman, and he wore a lot of flannel, and I was like, yeah, you're speaking my language. This sounds excellent. This is what I want to do with my life.
My man.
And so the serious man crush times. But I ended up getting my degree, and fast forward a few years, I got my first design job, and I stayed in Arkansas for 3 or so years after graduating, and had a fledgling portfolio built up, and then I decided it was time to be back on the West Coast. And California wasn't calling my name, but as a beard growing, flannel wearing aficionado coffee fan, I was like, hey, the Pacific Northwest has got a lot going on. And I moved to Portland. And I was so tickled to be living in Portland. So it's like where coffee shops abound and everyone was bearded like me. And I spent 5 years there. I ended up working for Nike for a while, and then for the sexy dad sandal, Keen Footwear, where they have the little toe bumper, and it's
Do
almost
those words go
obligatory.
together? Sexy and dad sandal.
Oh, they do. They trust me. They do. And yeah, for whatever reason, my life took a turn into footwear, and I worked at 3 or 4 different footwear companies just because so once you had one job, it was easy to get the next. And that brings us to about 2019, when I didn't, as a going from homeschool to, in Awanas to Christian high school to Christian college, and then moving to Portland. Portland is a dark city, and obviously it's become more popular for how dark it is on the news. It's like there were the dark parts of town, but realistically, what I'm talking about is like this general oppressive nature of just being in a place where God wasn't welcome.
Mm.
And I found a great church. I read Blue Like Jazz in college, which but Donald Miller's, I saw him as a poet, and it was the first time that, as an alternative to Rush Limbaugh, I can beat any liberal with half my brain tied behind my back. I saw the side of Christian, Christian liberal, I guess whatever that term means, but I had a respect for people who were more relational, more emotive. The story he has about, it's like, I've been to plenty of churches and was a nobody to anybody. And then I sat down at a hippie fire, a hippie circle around the fire with all the guitars, and I felt like the most interesting person. That got my attention, and I was like, okay, so when I move to Portland, I'm gonna go check out, his church. Um, and I can't remember what his church's name was.
Imago Dei, right?
Imago Dei. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So Imago Dei uh, uh, was meeting, and I didn't really feel an immediate connection there, but they had spun off a church plant called Door of Hope that Donald was originally a part of helping get started. And and the pastor at Door of Hope really caught my attention. And he had a heart for Portland. He's like, you know what? I've been invited to move anywhere else in the country that I want to, and it's like there are people who need Jesus here. And it's like I feel called to this place as much of a mission field as it would be to the typical missionary to Uganda situation or something like that. And I love that, and I tried to thrive, and in some senses I did thrive in my professional career in Portland. But it got to the point where working on websites and selling the same product every year kind of felt soulless, kind of felt repetitive, and it's just different colors of the same thing sold to the same people, and we advertise how it's going to last for 10 years. So why are we selling them the next year's product? It's like when they just bought one last year. And I wanted to do something more meaningful with life, something more fulfilling, and really started praying hard about that in 2019 in January, and my birthday rolled around in April. Still praying, still kind of, I was I think I was one of two Christians in a company of 500, and was feeling really cut off. And it was awkward. I got weird looks when I asked for, an early exit on Friday of Good Friday, and people were shocked. It's like, why would you want to go to church? And I just said, I want to do something that doesn't feel like my creativity that I was using for worship, in chapel back in high school, is just going to dollars out the window. And I ended up seeing a job posting for George Fox University, which is about 45 minutes south of Portland, and they had an opening in the art department for art faculty.
Mm.
So hop, skip, and a step and a couple meetings, and I landed a job as art faculty, teaching graphic design and typography. And I brought out Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and I read it to my students and encouraged them to
Right.
walk backwards around campus. I mean, I am a product of my upbringing,
Did you go fly fishing?
all the time. Oh yeah,
Okay, just to
absolutely.
complete the motif.
The whole thing.
Yeah, gotcha.
And that was probably the most fun like year of my life was walking from, and my house was 8 blocks from the campus. I walked to the campus, taught my classes, walked home, grabbed my pool cue, and went down to the local den of iniquity, and I played pool.
Did you
I
walk backwards to school and then backwards home, or
at
was it
least one
forwards?
time in order
Okay.
just to set a good example for my students. Oh gosh, there's so much arrogance, so much just self-smugness there. But anyway, I'm making this story insanely long. That's how I got to Oregon and Newburgh, and I lost my job because they fired all the adjuncts as COVID hit. They said serious reduction in staffing and in school attendance. So here I was, had left my like super hoity-toity cool design job in Portland, and now I was unemployed 45 minutes south in a little, college town. Um and I ended up going to church one Sunday with my parents because I was still just attending virtually the Door of Hope sermons, kind of attending virtually. I don't know how much it counts as far as not being plugged into a church community, but I went one Sunday with my parents to church, and my mom, in such a helpful, this is, I wish every mom would do this, but introduced her son as her out of work graphic design son to the senior pastor, and I was like, this saint, thank you so much, Mom. That is exactly
Right?
the summary that I want.
He lives in the basement. He just plays video games all day long.
I
I mean, the
s-
whole persona.
I was like, I'm a freelancer. I am not out of work. As a graphic
I'm a
designer,
freelancer.
you can work from home.
I'm a contract employee.
So another hop, skip, and a step, and I landed a job working at a church there, and all the
That
love
church?
that church,
Did she introduce you to the senior pastor? Yes.
so I am secondarily grateful because I never would have asked for a job there, but they had a communications director role open, and it's kind of like creative director with church flair, and so it's like a little bit of video, little website, little brochures and logo work, and I was like, sure, I'll take, like this is a place to be. It's not, I'm not stuck on my couch at home, uh, and I got there, and my wife calls them the village yantas. All the older ladies found out at one of our staff meetings that I was single. And they said, "Oh, we know which life group you need to go to. There are three single girls." And and so and I was like, that's a great reason. I fought it. I fought it because I was like, I'm not going to a life group to pick up girls. That's weird. And then the leader of the life group came into my office at the church, and he's like, if you don't come to my life group at least one time, I am never going to hear the end of it from these Yantas. And s- so
You're really pissing off the matchmakers.
in protest, I went to this thing and I said, it's like, I'm just here, just checking it out. I'm not really probably ever gonna connect with you guys, so don't fall in love with me. And
Don't fall in love with me.
lo and behold, my would-be wife was sitting on the couch, and I was super cool about it, very chill. She had no idea I was interested in her. All the way up until the part where she had to ask me out. And then I saved it. I turned a friend hang into like a no, we're gonna dress up and have dinner. Um, but yeah, that's about when I got introduced to you. She had known you for a little while before I did, and you were our officiant. I don't know if you remember that. It's a rather large, important day for me.
Vaguely, vaguely.
Great. I knew I was special to you. Um, so anyway, we've been cooking strong since then. We got married, and her dream was to live in Bend, Oregon. Which again, I was like, hey, I like flannel, I like beer, I like coffee, and I never thought I would live in the high desert, but I moved here and absolutely love it. It's incredible.
You
I
love
mean, there's
spring thunderstorms, and why
I
not?
do. I do. And I love the mountains. They're her mountains. So anyone who knows of the mountains in Bend, those are hers. You get to look at them courtesy of her. She leaves them there for people to use and to see. But they're her mountains. And
Which, if you
yeah, and
think
I've
he's
been
kidding, he's not.
oh
Those
no,
are her mountains.
I wish it was. No, they're hers. But anyway, that's the longest possible, holy cow, rehashing of my story.
Oh, this is great. Keep going, dude. Keep going.
Well, I guess that, I buried the lead. One of the things I know you wanted to talk about was this wild experience that happened to me in the last year. Um, I, in short, I experienced um, what I thought was a summer cold. I had kind of a wet cough, and I had, I can't believe I'm admitting this to the whole internet at large, but I had been a smoker. And that was like, I know it's my sin. You can, please stop clutching your pearls. Um, but but I had been a smoker, and I switched to the dreaded vaping because I liked the smell of fruit clouds walking around and so I had had a cough and I had quit, as I when I got married, and my wife had this pesky habit of wanting me to stay alive. So she insisted that that was not going to be a part of our future, and I agree. I think it's unhealthy, but I was used to having a cough, and I get a man cold every year. I was thinking, this was just settling in, and sometime in February, but it started to get worse and worse. And after a trip we went on, I got home and I was like, okay, we got to go to the hospital. I can't breathe. Like this went from being a cough to like I was. I found out later I was oxygenated at about 60%, which, they start to look at you sideways if you drop below 90.
Yeah.
And so I was turning blue. I had about 15% of my lungs still available when I did the chest X-ray, and the rest had just filled up with liquid. And had no idea that was even possible. And 5 days in the ICU later, and another 10 days, I think, in the hospital after that, and the step down unit from ICU. I uh, I got discharged, and they weren't really sure what had happened. Their best guess was a virus or something had attacked my heart, but it sent me from lung failure to heart failure and kidney failure all at once. And yeah, it really went from happy-go-lucky man cold to, oh, you're on life support. And I was out at the time, but my wife was hearing things like possible heart transplant and some other things and like crazy, crazy stuff. And I got discharged after uh 14 or so days in the hospital, and I went home for 9 days. The first 3 days were okay. The second 3 days were rough, and the final 3 days at home, I was like, something's still wrong. And so checked myself back into the hospital once again, back under anesthesia and life support. And for another 5 days, and then another 15 days after that in the ICU, and kind of just clinging to life. The hard part was the all of the drugs. They've got great drugs for hearts and for lungs, but with my kidneys failing, they had to kind of slow roll me on what I could handle. And so it
Right.
was just this cyclical problem. And I've looked back on it after the fact, and it's like when, it's like uh you think, the old adage, the best way to make God laugh is to tell him your plans. We had so many plans for summer, none of which included over a month and a half in the hospital. Um, and uh and he just decided to say no. Uh we're gonna stop. We're gonna wait here. And life came to a halt. I had, kind of a semi stable freelance business, so with a handful of clients, and they all wished me well, but they came up with other ways to solve their design problems, and here I was laid up in the hospital for the better part of almost 40 days. Um, and it was it was an odd experience because for most of the scary bits, I was asleep. For most, yes, I couldn't breathe, and I went to the hospital, and that was scary. But they quickly put me out, and then life support, and I was out. Um, Had some wild dreams the second time around, and some what I think of as spiritual warfare and some hallucinations. Um, I will say I'm not a fan of drugs on that level. I mean, I love an aspirin or two to get rid of the headache, but the sedation drugs coming off of those, I mean, I was seeing the walls melting and cartoon versions of family members, and like I would close my eyes and I'd see it felt like every surface was a disco ball, all reflective, um and I kind of I would attribute that to I knew about spiritual warfare intellectually growing up, so much Bible as a textbook, but never really experienced it like that. And I remember, I have put pieces together from what people in the room who were praying over me um, have said, and some of the things that I've said, and I do remember really vividly feeling a set of claws, like just grabbing onto my neck and head and whatever else, and feeling a really dark, oppressive presence. And I woke up in tears, needing prayer, and asked the people who were, my family members were around. And I remember thinking how wild it was that my sister from Ohio came out to visit. It's like I'm just had a cold. Like,
Yeah.
why are you here? Uh, and no, it was my to see my best friend. I am inordinately blessed with having five or six like really best friends, like and to have them all show up at the hospital. And I had to have I guess I say my very best friend in the room talk me down from, it's like I felt trapped and was losing what reality was. And it's like I never really I never really knew how important my mind was to me than when I couldn't count on it. And not knowing whether or not what I was seeing was real or hallucinated, or I had a really vivid dream that I was in warfare and I had killed people, and I just was in tears, and I needed assurance that I hadn't gone out and, it's like just shot a bunch of people. And I remember watching my family's faces. I'll be like, "Oh no, Daniel's losing it," and my wife was right there through all of it, and watching her spouse. We've been married only 3 years now, and she's holding my hand, thinking that her whole world's about to change, and saying goodbye for the last time. And she was, the only thing I knew for sure in the early days was that I knew who Jesus was, and I was his. That was it. And one of my friends brought in a little, I wish I had had it or thought about grabbing it, but a little 1 inch figurine of Jesus. And it's not not sacred whatsoever. It's the most goofy looking little rubber Jesus with a great smile. But she put it on my table, and I remember just grabbing onto it. And it's like when you don't know what's going on in the world, it was a physical thing that I knew
Mm.
existed. It wasn't in my head. I could touch it, I could hold it, and I just remember being, I am Jesus's. Nothing gets to touch me because I have him. And then later on, it was, and my wife who was there, and she was holding my hand, and I do remember those times. and it was terrifying, but I never really felt like I might kick the bucket or shove off the moral coil. It was just, this is a crazy storm that I have to weather through.
Wow.
Um, and it's wild after the fact. I mean, the health scare calmed down. I was moving in the right direction, and I had a lot of time in the hospital just on my own. And I got opened up my Bible and started for whatever reasons in Psalm 21. And I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna read this over and over and over and over and over again. No, Psalm 40. Sorry. I'm gonna read this chapter. I believe that God has this chapter for me. And one of the days he said, why are you stopping at Psalm 40? You know, it's like, why don't you move on to Psalm 41? So I was like, okay, I'll read the next chapter. And in it, it talks about, it's like God has not forgotten you and he will not leave you to your sick bed. And he
Mm.
will raise you and restore you from it. And it's like when you're literally with the machines beeping in the background, sitting in your hospital bed,
Right.
reading that, it feels like the Lord is speaking to you. And, I'd
Just
had some,
recently being on life support.
yeah, legitimately.
Yeah.
And um, side note for context, I have a practice that every summer I pick a song of the summer. And I hadn't picked a song of the summer then yet, but my pastor, well, actually, I was serving on the tech team at my church, so it's the worship pastor, who uh, who reached out, and he's like, "Man, it sucks to be in the hospital. I feel terrible for you. It's like, are you listening to anything? Can I send you, a playlist or two, or some people that you could listen to while you're held up?" And I
Mm.
said, "Yeah, that's great. I had great audiobooks, but I hadn't listened to worship music in a long time." And so um, he sent me this artist, and his name is Kevin Embleton. Um, and he only has two songs out on Spotify, but one of them, "When I Called Your Name," was the song. And I remember hearing that in the hospital, and I remember the lyrics are beautiful. It's like, I heard your voice like a whisper washing over me. You weren't in the hurricane, you weren't in the storm, you were this whisper. And obviously it's the Elijah reference, but I had had what I considered several storms in life prior to that, where I was really invested in what God had to say, and I wanted him to speak. Um, and he wasn't. He was quiet. And so here, all of a sudden, now I'm past what I consider this epic storm of health issues. And I have quiet in the hospital, lots of hours of quiet. It's like, yeah, intermittent, people popping in for med checks and vitals and stuff, and visitors occasionally. And my wife stayed as often as she could, but she needs to get shower and sleep. But I had a lot of time with my Bible, and I just remember, it's like every time I open the Word, God had something to say that hopped off the page for me. And then if that wasn't confirmation enough, someone would reiterate it in my life, call me out of the blue that, family members were calling to find out how I was doing. And they'd say things they had never said before or since. And it was just exactly what God was saying from, like, it was just this time of reaffirmation over and over again of, I am with you. I'm not done with you. And I listen to a lot of modern hymns. There's an artist who does a whole lot of like reworking of hymns, and it's like just these old, like really biblically sound songs that kept me sane, kept me present, and the Lord wanted my attention. And I would just made life too busy,
Mm.
and had let too many things get in the way. And he says, okay, if it really is going to take all of this, I am going to force you to be still. And didn't have a choice. I had atrophied so much in the hospital that I couldn't really walk. I'd lost 60 pounds and my waist was tiny and my leg strength was gone, and so I was pretty much, I could hop out of my bed and get in the chair next to me and, make it to the bathroom on my own, but that's about it. And you really experience, you don't, I mean, I feel for people who lose their independence physically. But you believe that that's going to happen later on in life. You believe that it's first stairs are too hard, and then maybe you struggle with getting in and out of bed, and then getting in and out of the car, but it's a gradual progression to go from being whole and healthy and doing 15 miles a day walking while on vacation, to I need someone's help to get up and brush my teeth because I can't hold my arm up like this. the I thought I knew what humility was. There aren't things that will humble you more than not being able to take care of your just daily needs. Needing help to shower, needing help to use the restroom, needing help to brush your teeth. And uh, it was it was heavy. And I'm not the guy who asks for help. I'm the guy who helps. Uh, and to have that role switched on me, whether I liked it or not, that was absolutely a God thing. And I had wild numbers of people praying for me. I had, the all the people I worked with in the Midwest, was doing contract work for, they would call and say, "We're praying for you." And then my best friend's parents in Pennsylvania or Georgia or Florida, it's like our whole church and our life groups are praying for you, and and people from my old church and new church, and then my neighbors are bringing meals to my wife. It was just it was just God showing up everywhere and taking care of us in a really humbling way.
We've been kicking around over the last month or so, the idea of humility and what humility actually means. And we've kind of been kicking around the definition of humility as the desire to learn.
Hmm.
And you mentioned humility in midst of this. I wonder if like that definition applies to what you've experienced, and if so, kind of how.
Boy, I would push back on the desire to learn because I didn't have a desire to
Mm,
learn this. It was a necessity to learn, I believe. Um,
gotcha.
uh, and I wouldn't say it always is. I mean, you can approach humility willingly, um, but being humbled, maybe that's a difference. Um, Abruptly and potentially against your will was hard.
Yeah.
Um, and it's something I did come to terms with. I did actually want to know what God was trying to say. And that was, I journaled quite a bit, and uh, my journaling was more just right. I would start it off saying, "Good morning, God." Um, and I'd tell him about how I was feeling. And it was, my letters to God. And I would finish, it's like, okay, that's enough for me. I'd like to hear you speak. So whatever it is you have to say to me, I'm listening. And I wrote that probably, well, including after the hospital, I continued, 40 or 50 times. It's like, well, okay, God, I'm listening. And that, comes from the one of the lyrics of the songs, of the song that I coined a song of the summer. But okay, whatever it is, I want to hear you speak. It's worth the wait. And if I can't hear you, I'm just gonna stop. I'm just gonna wait, and I'm not gonna move until you speak.
Wow.
Um, and
There's
so
such a contrast there. Like as you described your life before, so busy, so engaged, helping, all that kind of stuff. And then to the place where you're sitting there saying, I'm not moving. I'm here waiting for you to speak.
mhm,
However long it takes. There's such a contrast in those. It's like black and white, all within a summer.
it it really was. It was about as abrupt of a silencing of the noise as I don't know how I mean, to go from full life, plans, trips, and volunteering at church and this, that, and the other to nothing. To, everyone is fine with you taking off of work. You'll deal with those problems later, and your wife is telling you just to focus on rest. Um, when rest is anything that's, anything but what you want to do. And you just have the quiet, and you have your Bible and some good songs, but it's not what I would have chosen. So you're back to your definition of humility being, wanting, was it
The
wanting
desire to
to
learn.
desire to learn? Um, yeah, it became that. So maybe it was complaining prior to when I, was grumpy with God for taking all these things away. Uh, but it did turn into a desire to learn, a desire to hear his voice, more so than just a quaint sound bite that you write in your notes from Sunday sermon at church. It was like,
It almost seems sacramental in the sense of like a tangible, real, felt human experience that was painful and yet a gateway at the same time. Like you were talking about the holding the Jesus. Like, and we know it's just a rubber characterized Jesus,
yeah, there's no power in it,
but
but
there
it was
is a
physical.
power in it. There,
Well,
like
not
there
in the
for you.
plastic toy part of
Yeah,
it,
no,
but
no, but
yes, yes, the
in that
concept of it.
moment to
Yeah,
you, there was a power, or to have your best friend there, there was a power in that, or to have all these people praying, because we say it quite often, oh, I'll pray for you, you know, but like in this season, when you're at death's door, and to have these hundreds, if not thousands of people around the country praying for you. It's something very tangible and sacramental that's happening there.
yeah, yeah. It was that is truly humbling when people you have never met, um, and are multiple degrees away from connection with you, when they know who you are and are praying for you. Uh, it made me feel really undeserving. I was like, it's like it makes sense to me why my sister was praying for me, why my best friend was there praying for me, and why my people were praying for me, why my church team, wrote a card and hope you're feeling better and
Mhm.
organized a meal train. I get all of that. Um, but I got to see God moving far beyond me. And I was like, why did you choose me? I mean, like, I don't, I'm not more special. I'm not, I mean, I guess I know that you call me special, God. And maybe Kevin, you call me special as well.
I mean, of course,
Um, but
usually in a derogatory way, but
yes, thank you. I thought it was actually that I was special, but now I know what you mean. Um, but no, you pray flippantly, Lord, use me. Um, and then when he decides to, because I heard different stories about how, like there's a young couple who's about to get married, and something I said about how my wife was so solid for me and lifted me up and had my back, and I trusted her implicitly. They were like, "Wow, do we have that?" It's like, do we have that foundation in the Lord? Do we have that prayer for each other? It's like we're about to get married. Do we need to talk more deeply about this? And it's like that was just one of a bunch of different stories, and I was like, I had nothing to do with that. It's not my. I was just telling you that my wife is awesome.
Right.
And
I was just being honest
and
about my experience, and
yeah, and I didn't have any choice but to grab onto her hand and trust and pray like it mattered. That's not unique or special to me. Plenty of people go through that, but God wanted to use it. And when God wants to use you, it may not be in a way that you agree with or appreciate or feel warm and fuzzy about. Um, and it was heavy. It was, in some ways it was embarrassing, um, that everyone knew that I wasn't okay. It's like I, I had this all of a sudden desperation to be invisible, to just have this private, um,
it's like that
struggle.
dream, that gets referenced quite often. Like you show up to middle school in your dream and you're naked and you
Yeah,
recognize you're naked in front of the school. Like it just sounds like that dream, but in real life.
yeah. I mean, naked is a good way to describe it because it's like your most private and vulnerable struggles. Now everyone knows about. And I don't besmirch anyone or resent anyone for caring about me or for praying. I mean, I deeply appreciate that, but it was weird to go through. And I'm the guy who serves in the back. I'm the guy, it's like I'm most comfortable when the lights are down and no one looks at the sound guy unless I screwed up. Um,
Right. Unless there's feedback.
unless there's feedback. Yeah. Um,
So we could just
but I,
characterize this whole event as one massive feedback loop.
yeah, I would just, I knew I was comfortable serving God by stacking chairs and, pushing the volume knobs and being in the back. And God made me a
And he
lot more
decides
public.
to, yeah, decides to put you on the stage, on the live
Yeah.
stream in front of the audience.
Yeah. And and I mean, thankfully that has died down quite a bit. It's like it was a moment that God was using my story for other people. And people were praying and using their prayers to totally radically change my life as well. I'm not um I just don't know. I do remember at one point almost feeling an electric buzz with the number of people that were reaching out and saying they were praying for me. And at that point, I was getting up and doing a lap or two around the ward in the hospital with my walker and my little oxygen tank mobily. And I remember just thinking, I don't deserve this. It's like I'm one of, a dozen people who were on the ICU wing, and there was one guy, I have no idea what his name actually was, but I called him Jeff. Um, and and I just said, Lord, there's got to be more prayers left over. Like, please do something for Jeff. If I could, it's like kind of dissipate some of this, what I felt like was this weird buzz of attention. Just started walking around praying for people. And I remember being in tears when Jeff's family showed up after 5 or 6 days of him being immobile and he was, had the tube down his throat and everything like I had. And I just remember being so grateful that the Lord, it's like it just all of a sudden, these are weird, messy thoughts, but I had such a longing to alleviate some of the loneliness or some of the despair of other people in the ICU. Um, and it made me, conversely extremely grateful for how many people surrounded my bedside, and how many people cared, and how many cards I got, and how many text messages came in once I was actually looking at my phone and paying attention. And then just like this vast difference for the guy next door. Um, oh, I didn't have any visitors, and it's just like, man, when God says whatever, it's like whatever you've done for the least of these, when you gave food to the hungry, you visited me when I was in prison, you came to my bedside when I was sick. I mean, it's like the hands and feet of Jesus I got to experience. And then I immediately felt almost guilty, undeserving. It's like, I'm one of 50 people on this ward who are all struggling. And it made the need kind of like huge in my brain of how many people go unseen and unknown, un unmet in their difficulty. And um, I haven't been back to the hospital yet. There's a lot of, mixed memories, but I know I will be back. I know I will be intentionally back, and I do want to sit and visit with people who are stuck because they're going through the roughest, most vulnerable times of their lives. Um, and I remember how much it meant to me to have people come and just sit and be. And you don't have to hit you with the platitudes or um, the hope, get well soon. Talk to me about anything other than medical stuff. It was helpful. Um, but yeah, and I've tried to carry that over in life, and tried to carry, that still small voice, that request of, okay, God, I'm willing to listen. Well, what do you have to say? And I mean, it's not as dramatic as I have experienced in the hospital, but he still speaks, still moves, s- still answers when I earnestly ask. And I think it was at one point where you said, I was really focused on the be still and know that I am God. Kind of trying to understand, how do you actually do that? How do what does actual be still and know? Um, what does it feel like? And now I had this forced stillness to look back on. So
There's an interplay here. You talk about the humbling and the needing somebody to take you to the restroom, to help you brush your teeth, to take a shower, that kind of thing. It reminds me of um, what is said to Peter, like, at some point you will go where you don't want to go, and you will be led there, and that kind of thing. It's like you were brought to where you didn't want to be, and you were led there, and you were taken care of, and there was this humility that happened, and it almost feels like, sounds like, and this is my interpretation of what you're saying, but like that there was an arrogance before, and through that process there's this humility now. And I wonder how
still
you
plenty of
see.
arrogance.
Yeah, right, right.
I have no
You're
problem with
you're you're
arrogance. I
not you're
keep
not the
going with that.
statue of humility. Because I have that statue in my house, and I thank it every time I walk by it, the statue of Daniel.
Yes, many statues have been made for. I am the most humblest of all.
But I just wonder, like, as you look back at this experience, and certainly you're a few months after it, but like, I guess the question that pops into my mind. are you different? Are you are you better? Are you stronger? Are you wiser? Are you are you different?
Yes, much different. I don't know that I would claim to be stronger. I believed that I was stronger before. Um, and similar to the maxim of, you know, wisdom is knowing how much you don't know. Um, Life is more fragile than I ever believed. And spiritual warfare is more oppressive and more present and more real than I ever understood. And I am not as invincible as I once thought. And God is going to do whatever he decides, whatever he wants with my life. And I have no control. I wouldn't have done it that way. I would not have chosen what he chose for me or for my marriage or for my wife having to go through, you know, month and a half of thinking her spouse was going to be taken from her. I mean, it's trauma. And I don't know that saying I am stronger as a result of that. I feel more fragile. I feel much smaller as a comparison to God. I believed that I had more control over life and um, more influence, more direction, more agency than I do now. Now it's whatever you want, God, because I am too small. I am too small for what the world can throw at me and what problems can happen, and he is not. It really disillusioned me um, uh, that I had much to contribute. I used to think about this partnership between God and I as like, okay, God, you do 50%, I'll do 50%, and we'll change the world together. And boy, if you need an example of my arrogance, that would be it. It is not a 50-50 at all. I
You and me,
am
God, we're gonna take over the world.
we're gonna do it. We got it. We're we're the most impactful you've ever seen. Paul? Yeah, who's Paul? Peter? Come on. You and
This
me.
guy.
I got two thumbs and all the holiness right here. But no, it's much less comes from me. It's what I can contribute is exactly surrender. And I had that thought, with all these people praying about, it's like what makes me special, and the thing that I came to conclusion of is nothing. I am not special. The thing that makes me worth anything is the fact that God decided so. God chose me. That God is special. He is all the things I thought I was. God is the beginning and the end, and yes, Alpha and Omega and all the things, but he is the reason and the bringer of everything. Why then he chose me, I do not know. But he did. And so, because God is special, he makes me special by choosing me. And it has absolutely nothing to do with me, other than the fact that I think he likes me. But I don't contribute uh, anything to my salvation. I get to be the recipient and a grateful one, hopefully, um, and a less cantankerous pain in God's ass. Maybe I will learn more gracefully. Maybe I'll um, get out of his way more readily. Um, and maybe he'll choose to use me more. Uh, I don't know. It's
A
kind
buddy
of
of mine sent a meme the other day, and I found it hilarious. It said something along the lines of "Thank you for being my friend." It seems like a poor life decision on your part, but I'm grateful.
very much so. If I could
I
get
just,
a
if you could say that to
deific
God.
version of that, yeah. It's like I don't know why. He's like, I am intimately familiar with all my failings and all the ways I can be an arrogant dick. And yet he says that he likes me. So can't seem to understand why, but I'll take it.
Well, there's this idea, Brennan Manning talks about it. He says, like, it's not that God loves you, because we know he has to love us. Scripture tells us that, but that he actually likes us. Like, it's like I see you dancing on that line of like, you like me. Not quite sure why, but you do, and I'm
Yeah.
grateful.
Yeah, that I would say is crystal clear for me. Um, how much less I bring to the table than I ever thought I did. Um, and I don't know if that, I mean, I don't know if that counts as making me stronger or it certainly makes me different. I will never, I was disabused of a large portion of independence and arrogance and, in a painful way. And I will never be able to claim that with a straight face again. Uh, so yeah, wild journey.
So is there any, I was curious about this. So you have this experience where you have all these people praying for you. You have all the quiet time, the listening time, feels like God's constantly speaking. And then coming off that journey of all the attention, getting back, rebuilding strength, rebuilding your life, getting back into a daily flow. Was there any fear of losing the special things that you had in during as painful as it was of losing the special things that you had of being able to take all that stuff with you? Or what was that experience like for you?
Definitely big fear. Big fear that my life would become busy again. That the noise would crowd back in, and I mean, with any, I'd say it with any in in Christian vernacular. They say you have your mountaintop experiences where you feel close to God, and then you go in and you have your valleys. And I was, and still am, nervous about the valleys. It's like I will never not know that God does speak. That is rock solid for me. He does speak. It also makes it really hurt, painful when he chooses not to. Um, and I know he will again. I know he will. There will be seasons of silence. I know there will be seasons where I feel distance from God, even though, scripturally we know he's never far from us. He is here. Um, but there is fear. There's this like, can I get back to, do I need a hospital experience to have that sanctity and sacredness again? And all I can say is I hope not. I hope I don't ever need to, I've used the term for multiple chapters in my life. I call it God spanked. Because your parents don't spank you anymore now that you're an adult, but God decides to spank you every now and again. Please don't clip that. That's a terrible clip.
That's gonna be a clip. I can guarantee it. Haley,
Oh
clip
no.
that one.
Oh no. I just realized like I get the clips from Pub in the Desert on my email. So it's like I will see this again. Crap.
Oh,
So
you're
much
gonna
for
be on TikTok too.
so yes, I hope I don't need to be spanked again in order to have that closeness with God. But I tasted a real thing. Uh I would say very few people are as fortunate as I, in the sense that I got to see a, a radical outpouring of love from my whole life of people. Um, I had uh, very few people get to know who might come to their funeral. But it kind of felt like that. I kind of felt like this, when people thought I was on my deathbed, they were sending me the most meaningful recaps of it's like, hey, I know we haven't talked since high school, but you were always someone I liked and I cared about. And I'm just like, this is just
Even with the
incredible.
roller skate shoes and the computer rolling bag, they still liked you.
Kevin, you seem to think that I was joking that I was cool. Like this is I everyone knew how cool I was. I mean, how could you not? You see that kid and my laptop bag was not only a laptop bag, it was actually just a roller suitcase, but the really small version if you had like a three set. And I hated the color of it, so I spray painted it. So like I did this really cool white and black and red camo that it wasn't camo at all. But and then I brought it to school the next day and into every classroom. So not only could you see how cool I was, you could smell how cool my bag was.
You're so punk.
Just
You're so punk rock.
pungent spray paint smell following me around for English and history and the bus as well.
Oh, confined
Yeah,
space. Yeah.
yeah.
How do you get high in a Christian high school?
Spray paint your suitcase backpack, 100%.
That's probably the best question you've ever asked us. How do you get high in a
How
Christian high
how do
school?
you get high? And yeah, that's
Oh, it's
me.
so good. You were decades ahead of your time.
Oh, decades. Yeah, nailed it.
I love it. I
Yeah.
think, man, we've just got a few more minutes here, but like, I don't know about you or, Matthias, I'm just throwing this out there. Like, I think it would be great to like have your wife on and have her kind of talk about like what her
Mhm.
experience was. Your experience is powerful and all those things, but she's standing next to you, experiencing this, watching this without, and I'm just thinking there's just a powerlessness around that. I just think it would be fascinating to hear her perspective if she would be open to that.
Her perspective has taught me an insane amount. I mean, if anything, I had an outpouring of love. I had really good doctors and really good drugs, and I had God to walk through it with me. Even though the physical event wasn't happening to her, she was there for every bit of news. She was there for every, hard decision. She describes her experience, and I think if our roles had been reversed and I was watching my spouse struggle like this, I wouldn't want to handle it for a few days, much less a month. I mean, like it's terrifying. Um, and I I am tremendously blessed with the woman that the Villagiantas insisted that I meet. Um, I have a deeper knowing and trust and strength and faith in my wife and her love for me. That was that was, as someone who likes to help, I always believe that I am loved because I am helpful, and what I can bring to people. And when I could do no help for her, when I was just laying there, and to still be loved. I mean, she's a rock star. She's a badass. Um, I got a good one, and I would love to, sit and be an observer for the her take on it and hear what you guys discuss as a result, because you know I have a bad habit of making things like all parably and tying in a tidy bow, and this is the lesson that I learned, um and she's got an absolutely different point of view, um and different takeaways, and it's cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time to sit down with us and talk and answer our
I
questions.
expected
And
a lot more questions. I talked way more than I should have. I'm so sorry, for the just monologuing.
Yeah, that was one rule we forgot to share that guests aren't supposed to talk much when we have them on. So we
It
forgot to.
well, you said it was a conversation wherever it leads, and it's just like, well, I guess it leads wherever the hell Daniel is going.
Exactly. Yeah.
that's pretty much how
It
it
was
goes.
our lesson in surrender. We'll go where you lead.
Oh no, oh no, I'm that guy. Well, thank you
Well,
guys.
you are always welcome to come back because we
I
we will have no shortage of questions, the two of us. So if you
now
want peppered, come back.
I'm grumpy because I told you what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about where the internal organs exist on a centaur. Like, are the lungs actually up in the chest cavity of the human, and how do they always have like abs? Because you can't get down and do crunches when you have a horse body coming out the back. Like the important stuff, Kevin, and here you wanted to talk about health.
And
So,
Jesus and all these
and
spiritual
Jesus and
journeys and
things.
next time we can talk
Well,
about
guys.
centaurs if you'd like.
Sounds good to me. All right, gentlemen. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Th- Thank you. And thank you guys to all our listeners again for joining us on this journey, joining us in this conversation. And you're always welcome to, if you like what you hear, if you don't like, move along. If you do like what you hear, click the subscribe. Like Daniel mentioned, you can get it by email, or we're on all the other places, which you can very easily find. So it's been a pleasure, Daniel and Kevin, both of you guys. And until next
Same
time.
here.
Until next time.